Hey everyone, I just want to give this message before my video starts. Remember, life's just big one psychological warfare on yourself. Every single day you have to battle to overcome it. The most important moments of your life are the ones from now onwards. You have to take control of your mind and be on top of that because that's what controls everything. You have to be your own hero and overcome things. If you do this enough over time, you will achieve all of your goals and dreams. You will develop a mind that's so strong that nothing in life is going to be able to break you down or hurt you anymore, and you completely lose a victim's mindset. This is something I've been doing for a while now, and it's honestly done wonders for me. But that's not to say I still don't get bad days and dark days. I've had a few days where I felt quite down and I've not really been able to help myself. And I know that in my head I'm always alone, which is a lot of why I do so much work all the time and try and distract myself. Because I've really struggled just to be with my thoughts and alone at times. Like I'm my own biggest enemy. But where I know that, it means my mind's my most powerful weapon. So I have to use that to my advantage. Your mind's always going to have the edge over you because it knows you better than anyone else, so it can put you into dark situations really quick, which is something I struggle with again. I have to understand in the moment that if I'm feeling alone in my head and I'm around people, then I really need to fight my way out of it and start interacting with other people and coming back to the moment. Remember too, if you do need help, make sure you get some therapy too. But the moment you take control of your mind is the moment you take control of your life again. Like, I've suffered more than I could ever put into words with this, honestly. And it's something I'm never open about with people that actually know me in real life. Even now, it's one of the hardest things I have to do is put myself out here like this because it's just a lot to do and it's still painful reliving some of it. But if I know it's going to help people, then it's something that I'm always going to do. And all I want to get from my videos and my life's work is just to help other people avoid suffering like I have and see that I've come out to the other side of it and completely changed my mindset and that you can do it too and that I'm always going to be here to help you. So I just wanted to share that before the video started. I love you and hope you have a great day and enjoy these stories. When I was younger, every year for Christmas, I would drive upstate to my aunt's house along a stretch of highway. I can't for the life of me remember the road. All I know is that it runs near Arkin, New York at some point. It's mostly a drive through rural areas with little to no towns nearby. So it's the dead of night, and my groggy self has gotten off a long shift and had to drag myself to my aunt's house since my extended family was expecting me the following morning. Near halfway through the drive, I realise I'm very low on gas. It annoys me. My brother told me he filled it up, but he hasn't. I saw an archaic looking sign for a gas station off the next road. It wasn't an official road sign, literally a pole with a slab of metal attached with gas off the next exit or something. That seemed a little sketchy, but people do the same thing with fruit stands on the highway, so whatever. I pull off at the next exit, on some dilapidated country road through dense woods. The whole thing was creepy and surreal. I kept expecting Leatherface to come running at me. Eventually I come to the gas station and realise quickly that it's not been open for years. It was all rusted, and the convenience store roof is caving in. The gas pumps had all been taken out as well. I pull over next to it and check my gauge. I would probably only make it another half mile before running out, so I called AAA, and they said they're going to send a truck. Now the waiting game. I left my engine on because of the headlights, and it's pitch black, and my paranoid self didn't want to be sitting next to an abandoned gas station in the dark for what felt like forever. So most of the wait is actually uneventful, until I sense movement around the side of the old store, where my lights are pointed. I look up and didn't see anything more, so I look back down at my phone. Then, over the sound of the night, I hear someone yell, "Hey buddy, come here," in a demanding tone. I look up, and there's a guy standing by the old store staring down at me, illuminated by my headlights. He looks like a run-of-the-mill homeless guy. I was spooked and figured that he must have been squatting there watching me. I say, "Yeah, what's up? You got any change?" "Nah, sorry man." I look up at him, and he has this vacant expression. Then I see more movement. There are heads, about 20 or so, peeking around the trees beyond the man I'm talking to. I can't see them clearly, but there are definitely people there. Literally just heads, staring in the direction from around the trees. I then see another guy beginning to walk from around the gas station, so I peel off. I get as far away from that place as I can, and update the AAA on my location. The driver came back over and filled me up. I didn't say anything, but he left, and I want to call the cops. I called the nearest sheriff department. When I get to my aunt's house, they called me back and said they're all gone, but they found a lot of different signs that people have been living there. The whole situation freaks me out, but frankly, I consider myself lucky to be able to even tell this story, knowing that nothing happened to me. My mum was always very cautious of the bad things that could happen to her children. She would take all three of us, my brother, sister and I, to school, all at the same time in the morning, and she works very close to where the school is. I remembered I was begging to bike to school since I got a new bike for my birthday, and she agrees. I was in grade 7, so 12 or 13. My school was a 2 to 3 minute drive away, and probably a 10-minute bike ride. I was eager to ride my new bike to school, as I also had gotten a new helmet and lock as well. School starts at about 9, so I left at 8. I liked to hang out in the yard with my friends before school started, so I would always go earlier. The route to school was pretty much one straight line, and we get into the city. Now it's 8 o'clock in the morning, so it's relatively bright out again. I'm on a well-populated main road. So I'm about halfway to school, and I decide to cross the street, but not at a crosswalk or traffic light, just kind of jaywalk in. I'm looking both ways though, and I noticed a black car pull up to my left near the woods. It's a Honda Civic, and there's 2 young guys in there, well, sort of young, but they've got tinted windows, and I don't think much of it. The only thing that crosses my mind is, maybe I was blocking them from their driveway and continued down. From the corner of my eye though, I saw a man dressed in all black with his hood popped up, hide his face, get out to the driver's side and walk around the back of the car to the passenger side before I realise what's happening. He's opening the passenger door, and he's pulling me by the arm off my bike trying to get me in. After what felt like an eternity, it was like every car on the street had disappeared. Any sign of help was gone. I'm on one of the busiest streets in my city, and it feels like a graveyard. It really feels like one of them nightmares where you can't actually do anything. You just lay there and suffer until you wake up. Now, these things don't really happen in my city, so I'm not really prepared for this. Now, the first thing that comes to my mind is to aim for the nuts. I shifted my weight to my right leg and kick as hard as I possibly can. Landing one kick, I actually hurt my ankle, so I can't imagine how it felt receiving that. I didn't even look before I crossed the street, biking as fast as I can. I remember trying to turn around to get a license plate, but my eyes are very watery from fear. I knew my mum wouldn't have been at work, so I continued biking to school silently crying. I pull into the schoolyard and drop my bike off. I didn't care to lock it or ever ride it anywhere again. My school's front door is locked 24/7, and you had to ring a doorbell to get in. The serenity reminded me that I still had time to play outside before class starts, and that's when I finally speak again. I need to call my mum. I scream and the door opens instantly. I explain what happened to the secretary, then the principal, and my mum and the police. Now, a business across the street had some surveillance footage, but you can only see the bottom 6 inches of the guy's car pulling up, so that was no use. Apparently, the same guy with the same description went on an attempt to kidnap 3 other girls but never got caught. I don't really believe in God, but I do pray that he/whatever it was never successful. Now, I'm new to Reddit, but this is my experience. So this happened when I was a lot younger. I want to say freshman in high school, probably like 2008. There used to be this road near where I lived in CA called Croak Road. It was barely a road. No one travelled on it, and it was surrounded by small patches of forest and some abandoned barns and houses. I would typically go there with my friends to skateboard and hang out. This one night, I was hanging out with 2 of my friends, Lucas and Durain, and somebody wanted to go to Croak Road and hang out since it's creepy. It might sound lame, but we loved exploring like a bunch of 5th graders that weren't really into smoking or anything like that. I asked my 20-year-old brother James if he could drive us down into one of the nature reserves by the road. This specific reserve was larger than the others and had a network of gravel paths leading through it. Basically, we were looking for unexplored territory to hike in. Soon, one particular path we're travelling down becomes so narrow that James thought Explorer couldn't pass through it, so we got out and walked for a while, chatting, having fun. We go through the woods for about an hour until it had gotten relatively dark out and the sun's gone, at which point we turn around and head back to the car. It's now I should mention that despite being near a lot of sub-developments, this patch of forest is huge and rarely visited since it was so easy to get lost in, especially at night. It was a challenge getting the car turned around, but James manages it, and we're going down the road. Durain proposed that we turn down a different path which we had passed by earlier, since we had about another 40 minutes until our parents want us back, and we agree. Down this path was a tiny pond Durain wanted to check out and take pictures at since he hadn't got the opportunity to go at night. It was slow going since the road was even creepier than the main one we're on, but we turned off Croak Road. Minutes later, we got into a slight argument. Durain was convinced James had taken a wrong turn since we shouldn't have arrived at the pond by now, while James claimed that he had been driving straight the whole time. Eventually we come to a fork in the road that none of us are familiar with. None of us knew which way to go, so we ended up guessing and going left, hoping that both directions would ultimately lead back to the main path. None of us were scared or anything. In fact, we are actually excited and intrigued, driving through seemingly the middle of nowhere at night. It was at this point we rounded a small bend in the road and the headlights fell upon a surreal sight. There's 4 figures emerging from the forest crossing the road wearing what appears to be cloaks. One guy at the back was dragging a large duffel bag. We all froze and stopped mid-conversation, and as soon as our high beams landed on the 4 figures, they freeze too. James pulled up to the left and went around them. Driving past them really felt like an eternity though, because we couldn't have been going over 5 miles per hour due to the condition of the road. Sitting in the passenger seat, I could see them inches behind my window, and they're indeed wearing black robes. I didn't get a good look at the bag, but judging by the way the guy was, something heavy is inside the bag. None of us said a word until the road straightened out, and we're far past those guys. At which point, James mutters, "What the hell was that?" We continued down the road in silence, and I heard Lucas say, "Wow, they're coming back." I twisted around in my chair to see Lucas pointing out the back window. I could barely see anything, but about 100 yards away we saw the beams of 4 flashlights shaking erratically. The guys were without a doubt running after us, all of them screaming. We start to tell James to step on it. The car bounces and shakes uncontrollably as we flew over beams and potholes. Thank God we did manage to get back to the main path. James gunned it down the path until we're popped off by Croak Road and we get the hell out of there. This is the weirdest thing though. The creepiest thing that I realise is none of them had a vehicle, so they must have been about 50 miles away from anything and they were just out there in the woods with that body thing in the bag. We ended up calling the cops, but they can't find anything. I never told my parents about it until writing this. I haven't really shared it with anyone. It's very important you report suspicious people. I still wish to hell to know how they got there, where they were going, and what was in the bag. Though sometimes I think it's better for me not to know. Hey folks, I'm kind of new to this, but this happened just after I went to a Christmas Eve party when everyone goes home and I decide to stay because my cousin and I were watching a movie. My uncle, who used to walk his dogs in the woods next to a park, went off to take them out. Before this, my aunt told him don't do that because it's too dark out there, and around 5 AM, he didn't care. He went off anyway. My aunt was still worried, so I went along with him. Once we're actually there, nothing wrong really seems to happen. My uncle and his dogs are just relaxing, and I don't really pay much attention to the surroundings when suddenly the dogs go still. This wasn't strange. They always do this and stare and bark at animals, but this time it was different. When the dogs got still, my uncle and I noticed that something was wrong. The dog wasn't angry or anything, just kind of nervous and anxious or afraid. One of the dogs, the largest one, was growling and shaking. As my uncle started to get worried about the situation, we heard it. People in the woods. We couldn't actually see how many were there because of the darkness. Now we hear, we're all gathered here by the blood of we, thee, and thy. As my uncle and I heard that, he yelled for his dogs to follow him out of the woods. As we all left, he turned his back, and we only see a slight movement in the shrubs. Maybe these people were trying to hide. We ended up quickly getting the dogs and getting out of there. We never actually took the time to investigate who they were or what they were doing, but after that happened, my uncle didn't take his dogs near those woods ever again, and is very scared of being out late now. When I was 7 years old, my father took my older brother and I to a cabin in the middle of nowhere as a vacation. We also took our cat with us. Everyone has their own room. I had the room furthest from the other two, positioned right next to where the wood starts. There was a window right next to my bed, and on the right side, and there was a tree right next to it that I remembered getting to climb in the previous day without success. The bedrooms were on the second floor, by the way, and the window didn't have any curtains or blinds to cover it. Now one night, I remembered feeling homesick and unable to sleep. The cats are laying on the bed with me. I was reading comic books at around 2 AM when I heard tapping on my window. I assume it's a branch tapping on the window because it's windy, but I hear whispers now. I remember just freezing in my fear, feeling like a bunch of ice water's being poured on me. I could hear whoever it was tapping saying, "Let me in," and my name, "It's cold out here." I just want to cuddle. I was paralyzed by fear. I just lay there, facing away from the window, terrified close to tears. I've honestly never had anything like this before. I was so paralyzed by fear that I just faced away from the window. I knew it wasn't my father. He kept saying that, but it's a lie and it's my imagination. I grabbed my cat, feeling safer with him, my only defense. I couldn't believe this guy had the nerve to call himself my dad. I didn't know who he was or what he wanted. I hear a screeching sound now, like somebody's got a pocket knife against glass. Now the grin disappears on his face and he just looks like he's horrified and absolutely full of rage. At that moment, my father come barreling into my room with his hunting rifle, and as you can imagine, seeing this made him panic and sort of drop backwards. My father just looked at me to make sure I was alright, just as my brother came running in. He wants to catch him, but unfortunately he got away. To this day, I don't think they ever caught the guy. I remember my father filing a police report. Sadly, they never actually found this guy, and he might still be out there to this day.